I've been trying to figure out for a while why social media makes me feel so awful and what I can do about it. I've known for a while that things like TikTok and Instagram don't make me feel good. When I spend a bunch of time on these platforms, I usually walk away feeling kind of despondent, sort of melancholy. It's not a good vibe. So, what is actually going on? And I think I finally cracked it. And the way I figured this out was by thinking about YouTube. So for a very long time, I've set YouTube aside from other forms of social media because YouTube feels different, right? It feels like a place where people are creating things and putting them out there and sharing them with the world, and you can learn stuff and you can see cool things that people are putting together. And sometimes when I go on YouTube, I feel great. I walk away going, wow, I'm so inspired and this is so creative and this is really cool. And other times when I go on YouTube, I feel, oh, I kind of just feel terrible about everything and I feel terrible about the world and I feel like I just wasted a bunch of time. The behavior that I had on YouTube sometimes felt very similar to the behavior I had on Instagram, and sometimes the behavior I had on YouTube felt very different. And it took me a while to realize that there's essentially two kinds of content on YouTube that I'm consuming. There's content which I would consider art in kind of the classic form of art, and I like to use Tolstoy's definition of art, where he says, and I'm paraphrasing here, that art is when an artist is creating something and they have an emotion while they're creating it, and they're trying to create the work of art as a way of transmitting that emotion to the viewer. It's a very pure form of art. It's a transmission of emotion. I think that's great. Some things on YouTube are exactly that. They are short films or creative works or things where someone has dedicated their life and energy and time into building up this thing that then by watching it, I am feeling the emotion that they put into it. But not all of YouTube is art. Much of YouTube and the content that I consume on other social media platforms is ideas. So the content itself is not about feeling a certain feeling. It is about communicating an idea. Now, some of these ideas are really interesting. They're philosophical concepts or breakdowns of religious ideas. They could be societal ideas, cultural ideas. It could be information about the Middle Ages. There are lots of different kinds of ideas. But I've found, at least in myself, that I have a very different response when I consume art versus when I consume ideas. And it's what I call top-down versus bottom-up. And stick with me for a second because this is going to get a little bit woo-woo. But when I consume an idea, it comes in as a thought, right? Somebody hands me an idea, that's a thought. I then put the thought in my brain, and from that thought, I can either agree, disagree, integrate it into what I already have in kind of my internal mental framework, and then that thought will generate an emotion in my body. Whereas, on the other hand, if I consume a piece of art, that art comes in here. It comes into my heart. The first thing when I experience a piece of art is an emotion. And after I experience that emotion, I may generate thoughts from that emotion, right? So it's coming in as an emotion and then going up and into a thought. And I think that that framework is fundamentally very different. When I'm just consuming thoughts, I'm just adding other ideas that other people have into my brain, which can be great. There are many people out there who are far smarter than I am, who have come up with incredible ideas, and me taking those ideas is a wonderful thing. But it doesn't give me space to think about the world on my own. Whereas when I create a piece of art, by it coming in as an emotion, it then allows me to think about, what do I think about that? It allows me to have my own perspective on something as opposed to just importing a thought. So let's take something like immigration. I could read about what is actually going on with immigration and what people think should happen, right, with the immigrant crisis. And that's going to give me a bunch of thoughts. And those thoughts, I'm going to then have feelings about those thoughts. That's one version. In another version, I consume a piece of art about immigration. Let's say a great film, a cinematic masterpiece about immigration. I'm consuming that, and the first thing that I'm having is a feeling. And then from that feeling, I am generating thoughts about immigration because of that feeling. And I think that there's an immense value in coming up with my own thoughts from the feelings that I'm having. So this is what I think really bothers me about social media, is that most social media is just thoughts. Some of them are facts, some of them are explanations, some of them are just people's opinions, but all of it is in the realm of ideas, as opposed to the realm of art. And these are two fundamentally different things in terms of the way that they enter our bodies. I think the simple way to think about it is that Ideas give you thoughts, and art makes you think. Now, I don't think there's anything wrong with consuming media which is built up of ideas. That's some of the best media that I've ever consumed, but I do find that I want to be very specific and careful about whose ideas I'm consuming and how I'm consuming those ideas and in what spaces I'm consuming those ideas, and not just doing it willy-nilly without really thinking about it. There's a lot of podcasts that I really enjoy. Right now, I'm really loving what Chris Williamson is doing with Modern Wisdom. I think he's absolutely fabulous, and it's actually really, really incredible. I love hearing what his guests have to say, and they're breaking down ideas, and they're thinking about these things. But I want to be really intentional about that media that I'm consuming. Okay, so here's some examples of media that is mostly just ideas. Podcasts, TikToks about what people think or how things work, news commentary, Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, X, whatever. Social media in general, a lot of what is on YouTube. And then on the flip side, some examples of art would be movies, music albums, books, comedy specials, fine art, short films, performance art. These are all forms of art. That isn't meant to be exhaustive at all, but I think that brings the point across. And when I'm on social media a lot, I find myself consuming idea-based media. I am bombarded with so many ideas that I don't have space to think for myself. And I think that fundamentally is the reason why I struggle with social media. So the challenge that I posed to myself recently is say, hey, let's really try solely to consume art. And I've gone even a step further than that. I think that there is immense value in a lot of television. I think that television is a wonderful thing, and I've talked about shows on this channel, like How I Met Your Mother, that have been really deeply impactful to me. I do love television in many, many ways. However, I often think television can be a bit repetitive. It's there to sell advertisements. And sometimes, especially with longer series, things can get drawn out just for the express purpose of trying to fill a season. Not all television, like not all movies, but not all television is created equal. And sometimes it can kind of ebb and flow in the midst of the same show. You know, we all know this, right? We say, well, no, season 3 isn't that good, but if you get through it, season 4 and 5, excellent. The other thing that I've realized is that I can spend a lot of time watching television, right? If I'm watching a Netflix series where the episodes are an hour long, you know, even if it's just a 10-episode series, that's the equivalent of watching like 5 movies, right? If you think about, like, most movies are about 2 hours long, so a 10-episode series is like 5 movies. I'm a film guy. I've always been a film guy, and I've wanted to watch more movies. And I've always felt this resistance. Like, it's one of these major struggles that me and my wife have when we're like sitting down on a Friday night with a bag of popcorn and we say, what are we gonna watch tonight? And we open up Netflix and we just scroll. Because it is true that there's this paralysis of choice when there's so many different things out there to watch. And it can feel a little bit scary to start watching something you haven't seen before. I know how crazy that sounds, but like, if you're in the middle of a TV show and you're enjoying the story and the characters and what they're going through, watching the next episode is exciting. But if you want to watch a movie that you've never seen before, is it going to be good? Is it going to be a waste of 2 hours? I don't really know. But I decided that's a fear that I should just overcome. That's a stupid thing to think. I probably will enjoy the film, and I kind of just need to force myself to get into it because almost every film that I watch, I enjoy at least in some capacity. And so instead of watching a lot of television, I've decided, you know what? I'm just gonna try to watch movies. Not only that, when I wanna go on social media, what if instead of going on social media, I watch part of a movie? I watch a piece of art, and where I might have spent 10 minutes on Instagram, I watch 10 minutes of a movie. What would that do to my life? And the answer, it's really freaking awesome. So, here's how I'm doing that in practice. Number 1, I am adding movies that I want to watch when I'm on a streaming service. I'm just adding them to my list. So that way, when I go on next time, I don't have to go through, oh, what's in the movies category and click through everything. I've already kind of pulled out stuff that I know I want to watch. And at least at some point, I decided that's something that I want to watch. And so I can kind of force myself to click play on it and get through those first 10 minutes that are usually a little like, I really wish I was watching a TV show right now, or I was on Instagram, and then I'm in it. And then I'm in the story, right? Like, I can kind of get through that resistance. And the second thing is physical media. Like, physical media is fantastic. We have a lovely local library where we live. And I went in there a couple of weeks ago and discovered they have a massive media section. Like, it's just enormous. It's like an entire wing of the library. And it's one of those things that's just sort of left over from the time where everyone had to use DVDs, like pre-streaming. But they also like buy new Blu-rays of movies that are, super crispy and look way better than what you're gonna watch on streaming anyway, which is super cool. It's not that same compression kind of thing. So I've just started going there and just picking out movies that I wanna watch. One of the things that I've noticed is that streaming platforms tend to have sort of preferred lists of films, and certain movies almost never end up on streaming platforms, even if you're paying for like all of them. There's just stuff that you're not gonna find. But going to the local library and going through the rack of Blu-rays and DVDs, I am finding an insane number of movies. Stuff that I've always wanted to see but have never seen. With that, I can also watch pretty much anything, because if they don't have it there, I can place it on reserve and then pick it up. So right now I'm working my way through the Oscars. I'd like to watch at least every Oscar winner over the last 100 years, and it would be cool to watch many of the nominations as well. There's so much great art out there. I think I just need a place to start. So that's where I'm starting. But I'm also just taking it in whatever direction I want to take it. I'd also like to watch every film by A24. Everything I've seen from them is super cool, and wouldn't it be cool to watch everything that they've ever made? The crazy thing about this idea is, even as wild as this sounds, stacking up every A24 film in a row is not really that much more watch time than an entirety of a TV show. I think that there's just this barrier to watching films. I feel like I need to like dedicate specific time to it and sit down and watch it in its entirety. But when I allow myself to watch it in chunks, watch it as I have time for, and allow that to be the thing that I'm turning my attention to instead of social media, wow. I find that I'm actually blowing through movies. So far in October, as I've been doing this, this is everything that I've watched. I watched RoboCop, The Green Book, Nomadland, One Battle After Another, The Smashing Machine, Anemone, Gladiator, Unbroken, and Men. It's been really rewarding to watch real art. And watching and consuming art like this, I find myself experiencing the feeling of the art instead of just the message of what someone is saying on a podcast or in a YouTube clip. And like, look, here's the thing. A podcast can be created in about the same amount of time it takes to listen to it, right? Like many 2-hour podcasts take about 2 hours to make. They sit down and they record them. A film is carefully crafted over many years. It is written, rewritten, shot, edited, sound design, mixed, creatively perfected down to the smallest detail. And that's really inspiring. It's really beautiful to watch. And I find that consuming more films is actually making me more creative. Where going on social media or going on YouTube and just kind of experiencing the opinions of other people was draining me, consuming creative work is actually making me more creative. I even just got a standing rack and a kettlebell, so I can literally watch movies while I work out. So instead of listening to a podcast or something, I can watch Oscar award-winning films while doing pull-ups. Honestly, I can't believe I didn't do this sooner. I'm gonna end with this thought. I've been really feeling the need recently to feel my feelings. Your emotions are not gonna kill you. Not feeling your emotions might. Our emotions are sort of this core truth that we have. It's the way that I feel. And so much of my life, of American lives in general, are spent trying to suppress those emotions, to not feel them, to go on social media so we don't have to feel our own feelings, to not listen to an album, but instead listen to a podcast where someone can give us a reassuring opinion and perspective about the world. Feelings are really important. And as I get older, I become more and more aware of my own feelings and just wanting to give myself space to feel them. And while I'm not so enlightened that when I want to take a break, I'm just sitting and staring at the wall and feeling my own feelings, I think that this is a step in the right direction to, instead of consuming meaningless garbage on the internet, to try to consume more art. Things that are there to provoke the feelings that we have. They're there to stir up what's already inside of us instead of implanting new ideas. Now, I don't know if this resonates with anyone out there, and many people might say, okay, this is all just woo-woo, but my life's pretty good. And doing this has actually made my life a lot better. So if you are struggling with social media, I think the antidote to the chaos that is this bombardment of ideas constantly is to consume some art and try to feel, what do I really feel? I hope that made sense. Thank you everyone for watching, and go consume some art.